Hi, and welcome back to 3 Mile Island Real Stories from Real Survivors. I'm Jancy Quest, and again, I'm your guide that'll be taking you down this rabbit hole. And on today's topic for news and events, I'll be talking with you about the SAFE protest that will be happening in Washington, D.C. in front of the EPA building on September 20th of this year. SAFE stands for Scientists, Activists, and Families for a Safe Environment. I, along with many others, will be representing the survivors of 3 Mile Island. However, not only will representation for 3 Mile Island survivors be there, but also across the nation. We have a national contamination and health crisis going on across our country. 3 Mile Island is just one issue. There's plenty of water issues of people being contaminated, getting cancer, thyroid cancers. We have our firemen that are getting ill. We have our military that are getting ill all across the country. Please come help and support this protest. And if you're one that's unable to attend the protest, there's petitions, information out there to get involved. We need your support on these issues for our kids and for our country. So join thousands of SAFE protesters outside the EPA headquarters of Washington, D.C. on September 20th of this year. So here's the information to get involved. Join thousands of SAFE protesters outside the EPA headquarters in Washington, D.C. on September 20th, 2022. This is the first annual event to demand the EPA accountability for environmental contamination that has sickened our children, families, wildlife, and environments. So please join us. Thanks for joining us for our first interview with our survivors. I'm sitting here with Cindy Potts. We were both West Shore School District students during the time. Welcome, Cindy.
Hello, Jancy.
Tell us a little bit, 1979 during the meltdown. Share with us your story of what you remember from that day.
Okay, so I was in 7th grade, and obviously we didn't know that the meltdown occurred at 4 a.m., I believe, is when they said. So we lived on Terrace Place, which is within the 10-mile radius, and we would have been going to school, standing at the bus stop, and apparently, we had no idea that there was radiation in the air. I was in New Cumberland Middle School at the time, my sister Laura and my sister Tammy was in grade school at Fairview Elementary. So what I remember is, it wasn't until the afternoon, I believe, they separated the grades, and we were put in the auditorium with the doors shut, and my sisters was in 6th grade, so they were down in the bomb shelter, which was probably safer because they're built with concrete.
Right.
Was also the gym at the time. But they put us in there and didn't tell us what was going on. We assumed tornado, hurricane, something like that. So our parents had to come get us. So, a lot of us were in there waiting for hours, and nobody said anything.
Right, yeah.
And, of course, my sister, who attended Fairview Elementary School, they bused them home, and she had to walk up the street, with all that radiation in the air. But once we got home, we still didn't really know what was going on, because,
if you realize now from the movie Meltdown that they shared, it was actually 3 days we were out going to the bus and all that it actually happened the 28th, but we weren't evacuated and shared until a couple days actually into it. So it was actually, I think, 2 days that they actually started the evacuations.
Yeah.
So we were going to the bus stop still at those times.
Yeah, no, like I said, I was out further, so I believe it was within 5.
Was the first, yeah.
But they suggested that if you were in after the 10 mile, you could evacuate. Now, my parents pretty much kept us in the house, doors and windows shut, and we're still like,
not knowing, yeah.
I'm like 13 going, what is going on? I don't, we just didn't understand.
And after the event, I
Nothing.
noticed my family, was one. Yours is the same thing, that a lot of us went back to normal lives.
Yeah, we didn't, nobody knew, but now my dad was an avid fisherman, so he fished the river, and I remember being down at the boat club and just the dead fish. The smell was horrendous. Dead fish, dead ducks. That's mostly what I remember.
Oh,
and
wow.
I know for a few years he would not keep anything that he caught because he was catching like mutant. That's just a better word. I don't
Right.
know, but mutant fish with like tumors on them and like
Right,
just very strange stuff. So he wasn't even, eating anything or bringing anything unless he brought it home and fertilized the ground, which probably wasn't good either.
Right.
But
right.
I mean,
Right.
they didn't tell us the whole story, so it just. And then as I grew up, older neighbors, I mean, they were adults then, but I could go down through my whole neighborhood and go, yeah, this house had this type of cancer, this person down here 2 doors down had this kind of cancer.
Right.
Like the whole, it was very weird.
And to share a little bit, Cindy actually ended up going into also the healthcare field, and she is a nurse.
Yeah, so one of my neighbors actually became a patient that I took care of, and he had a rare brain cancer, and let me tell you, he suffered. I mean, it was not pretty.
Right.
And then weird, just very strange cancers that people just wouldn't get.
Yep.
So,
And that's one of the things we're trying to bring here and collect are the rarities and show that there are issues that are going on.
And I know, I know for a fact, there's some women our age that were in that 10-mile radius that have, it's not, I'm going to say it's breast cancer, but there's something in the breast that shouldn't be there. So it possibly, I can't say for sure, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an oncologist,
Right.
that it could possibly be from the radiation effects. Because we were kids and we were not, like my sister was, she was probably like 11.
Right.
So, the body's still growing and maturing, and, if you've got some weird cells in there from radiation, they're going to lay dormant.
Yep.
And that is a medical fact that does happen.
Have you seen a lot over the years with nursing that you started connecting more and more
Just
with 3
like
Mile Island?
when I took care of that particular person, and then I would hear from my dad and my mom, oh, so-and-so in the neighborhood now has like some different type of cancer, and
Right.
they don't even know how they got it. And I thought,
Right.
Yeah, a lot of breathing issues is another one. Asthma. They say it's from allergies. Oh, you're allergic to this. Oh, you're allergic to that. But if the vegetation, trees, plants, we're all getting this radiation, it was seeping into the ground. You're breathing that in.
Right.
People are going to have problems. So
where are you at with everything today? Like now that it's kind of come back to surface.
I lived in New Cumberland. Gosh, until I graduated. I moved to Lemoyne, then I moved to New Cumberland again with a friend. So that was mid-80s, I suppose. But now I live in Mechanicsburg. I don't know if I actually need to go get a follow-up breast exam because they were seeing something in there.
Okay.
And I know from what they were saying and other people that had, that I'm thinking it possibly could.
Connection.
Can't say it is, but
it's very important, and I'm sure you might, but you always document when you go to medical.
Oh yeah. And a good thing to do also is make sure you get the printout from your doctor,
Right.
because that information is on there of this, that, whatever. And if they have to put it together and say it could have been because you were within this amount of, but
Right.
also, the radiation travels in the air, so you could be 15 miles away,
Yep.
and
Yep.
if the wind was traveling that way that day, or
Well, that's one of the things that makes this so difficult. It's not a fire. It didn't have color to it. It was invisible. So to try and measure it is impossible. If we all turned blue that day, they would know the effects right away, what happened. But in this case, they can't do that, which helps more government and companies than it does the people.
right.
So yeah, anything else?
Just tablets. That's not going to keep you from getting radiated. It's to lessen the effects.
Right, right.
But I mean, if you're in a high radiation zone,
Were you ones that were offered that? I find it
Yes.
interesting because I can't figure out the pockets of where they did this. I hear people sharing this. I know we were not one of them. So it's interesting. Again,
it
we were
was
so
supposed
close.
to be within the first 5. Like, they did it in kind of waves.
Okay.
So anybody who was within the first 5, they pretty much gave them or sent
Right.
them or something. I mean,
That's what I said because we were, but we didn't.
I'm young. I was
know.
younger then, but I know further out. Then they did further out.
Okay.
So I believe my parents had them, but
Right.
again, who really knew what was going on?
Right.
So thank goodness for that documentary series, because I think it really opened up a lot of people's eyes
Yeah.
to what was going on. I mean, if you even think about Chernobyl,
Yeah.
I mean, they still can't go down there to this day. It's still radiated.
Yeah.
So what are we doing in this beautiful park?
Right. Right. So yeah, it is interesting. Well, I thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your story.
You are very
And
welcome.
this is Cindy Potts.
Thank
Nancy
you.
Quest, and we're wrapping it up. Thanks for joining us for our first interview. I want to share a little bit about why this is important to me. I shared on the first episode, I was 10 years old in 1979 when the event occurred, the meltdown at 3 Mile Island. I was also diagnosed with hypothyroid and Hashimoto's, and I had a goiter 2010, and up to this year of April 4th, I ended up having to have my thyroid removed. I have the biggest goiter right now at Pinnacle. One was 10 centimeters, 2 were 6 centimeters. This is very important to me because there is definitely a connection, a thyroid issue, and 3 Mile Island. I have connected or spoke to over 600 people in this area. So please continue to support us with sending us your stories so we can get them out there. Don't forget to join us for the protest in Washington, D.C. on September 20th for SAFE and the EPA. And join us for the next episode where we will be showing some of the events that happened down there. Remember, like, comment, and subscribe, and most of all, stay alive.